Alright, hi guys. It's been a very long time since I've uploaded. If you guys can see the title, this video is about, if you guys don't know, I have 2 kids, and this video is about my birth story with my first. It's obviously been a while since I gave birth to that one. She's turning 8 really soon. So if you guys wouldn't know. I didn't really talk about it. My first was born premature. So essentially what happened was there was a day when I was I would say it was about 28 weeks, 4 days. I woke up, went to the bathroom, and before I went to the bathroom, it felt like a normal day. My boyfriend, I'd woken up and he had gone out and helped his brother fix windshields, because that was what his brother's company does. They do windshields, and he was he had been helping a lot, set them up, because he was trained how to do that. And so he went out and he was helping, and I went to the bathroom when I woke up, and I was gonna get ready for work and stuff. And I went to the bathroom and I looked down after I wiped, and I noticed there was if you have had kids, you would notice that there's something called a mucus plug. And one of the signs so if there's no blood in it at all, it means your mucus, some of your mucus plug just fell out, and that can be normal later on. Anytime there's blood in it means that your cervix, something's going on with your cervix most likely, and you are potentially dilating, or your body is trying to dilate. And there was blood. Not just pink, not just brown, it was pinkish. And so I called my boyfriend and I let him know that I was I just went to the bathroom and I see blood. And he came home. I went to the bathroom again. There was more of it. So we went to the hospital, and this hospital I didn't end up giving birth at. They actually have shut down due to, you're gonna find out. I have a lot of, I could say it's bias towards female OBs. I don't like them. I have very, very negative experiences. This is one of them, where I went in, and so they had me in triage. They did the swab, and they put me up to a contraction monitor. I was having active contractions. I didn't realize I was having them, but so it can't really pick up so basically when you're having a contraction, the monitor picks up contractions. I don't think, from my knowledge, that it ever picked up Braxton Hicks in my experience, because I'd gone there once before and I had a Braxton Hicks and it never picked it up. But actual contractions, it was picking it up as I was having contractions, and they did a swab. And basically that swab would tell them whether or not I was in labor or not. And they did the swab, and they came back an hour later and were like, yeah, it tested positive, but the OB was like, you probably had sex, and that's what was going on, and you're not actually in labor. The swab will only come back positive if you are genuinely in labor. It will not test positive unless you are in labor. Just so you all know that. It will only if you are in labor, that will happen. But I believed him at the time, and I went home, and then the entire day I was just getting I started getting more intense I started getting more intense contractions. I was drinking a ton of water. like trying to get him to like stop. I was relaxing in bed. I wasn't really doing anything, and I was texting my mom and my sister, and they were telling me to just that I probably should just go back to the hospital again, and I ended up doing that. We ended up going to a different hospital, and that hospital told me that I was in fact in labor, that the first hospital I went to actually should have started the process to try and stop it because I was only 28 weeks. And then they then proceeded to, after 3 hours of being in triage, they admitted me. They put me on IV fluids to try and and then they had strapped me up to a not ultrasound, the contraction monitor, monitored contractions in the actual labor and delivery room, because I was also being monitored in the triage, but then they started monitoring me in the labor and delivery room. And then I think after like 8 hours, they put me on like this IV called magnesium. They use it for other health conditions, and like I think you get it if you have like high blood pressure or preeclampsia. Also, it's extremely harsh on your veins. You actually have a really high risk of your veins collapsing during the use, but it can also stop preterm labor. And so I was on that for 2 days, and then on the third day they did half a bag, so technically 3.5 days. They did a bag. They checked baby was breech. My contractions had stopped only while I was on magnesium. Every time the magnesium ran out and 30 minutes passed, my contractions would come back, but by the third bag it was taking longer. Like the third half bag, it was taking longer for it to come back, well, for the contractions to start up. So when they didn't start up after 30 minutes, and I wasn't dilating, I was still at I was dilated. They had checked me and I was at a 1. I was only 1 centimeter dilated, so they believed they thought they stopped it. But they told me if I started contracting again, I would need to come back to the hospital, because it would mean that I was still in labor and they needed to see if there was anything else they can do or prepared to deliver the baby early. By the time, so this was, mind you, I went to the hospital the day after that day I went to the first hospital. So I was 28 weeks and 5 days by then. And then I stayed 3 days in the new hospital. So 28 weeks, 6 days, 29 weeks, and 29 weeks in 1 day, or 29 weeks in 2 days by the time I went home. And I was home for like a day. Just a day. By the time I got back, within 5 hours, I was having contractions. My mom was there with me. They had come up the day I texted my mom about everything that happened. My mom immediately got in her car and was ready. My sister, anyone who could come, they were there, and they were in the hospital with me. My mom was going to stay just in case I went into actual labor. She didn't want to drive back unless we knew for 100% that I wasn't going to go back into labor. I ended up having contractions again, and she was helping me monitor them. I tried to sleep. I drank a lot of water. By the time the next day, I was more of the mucus plug stuff again. So, and the contractions were intense, getting more intense. And so we went back. They readmitted me. I was in the triage for 2 hours where they monitored everything. I hadn't dilated, which was what they said was a good thing, but I was still in labor. So they had to, they decided to keep me. They readmitted me, and then I was put back into a labor and delivery room. and I was in there. So that was 29 weeks, it was 29 weeks and 2. So yeah, I left the hospital for 29 weeks and 1 day, came back the next day, literally the next day, at 29 weeks and 2 days, and I was there. Ended up giving, so I was put back on magnesium briefly, but my vein collapsed shortly after the bag finished, so they pretty much were done with, they didn't want to do any more of that. So I was just on IV fluids while they monitored. The contractions did actually start to stop again, but it wasn't until like 29 weeks and 4 days. By 29 weeks and 3 days, they were like running a bunch of tests and like a bunch of other stuff to figure out why I was in labor. And then they were also trying to figure out why my blood count was so dangerously low. I had less than 2 pints of blood in my body. If you know anything about the human body, that's very, very, that's like, that's insanely low. It's not normal. They determined I had very, very severe anemia. I ended up having 2 bags of blood. So I had 2 IV transfusions, blood transfusions, because of how much blood I needed. And then they were monitoring me. They had to do like a bunch of blood work and like a bunch of other stuff to figure out what was wrong, why I was in labor, like if there was an underlying cause, what caused it. It is pretty much the only thing we can guess is most likely my anemia, because it was so bad that my body just went into labor because of how severe it was. That was the only guess we could figure out, because everything else was coming back normal. I didn't have preeclampsia. I didn't have any other health issues. My anemia was just really severe that it's the only thing we can guess. However, on 29 weeks and 4 days at around, I think this was 8 or 9 p.m., my contractions had toned down quite a bit, and I was relieved. I was like, oh, and like to the point where they were non-existent. And I was like, I looked at the nurse next to me and I was like, oh, am I going to be able to go home? And she's like, probably, yeah. And I was like, oh, well, I have to go to the bathroom. And because I hadn't been able to stand up for a bit because of like all the IVs and stuff, because of how big of a fall risk I was. And she said, yeah, I could, she helped me, like, yeah, I could go to the bathroom. She helped me like undo everything, and I grabbed my thing and I like walked to the bathroom, and I felt like something go down my leg. And I like looked at the bed and I saw the blood. And I was like, oh. I went to the bathroom, sat down, was just holding my like hospital gown like this, and I was just going, and I'm like, wow, I really had to go apparently. All these IV fluids. I'm like, I'm not even having to push or do anything. It's just coming out. Yeah. After it ended, I wiped, and it was just a big old glob of my mucus plug, tons of blood. And I got up, washed my hands, opened the door. I'm going, I'm not going home, am I? And the nurse is just changing the hospital bedding. She's like, no, I've already called the OB. And I'm like, yeah, I guessed. She finished setting up the hospital bed. My OB came in shortly after. He was trying to stay at the hospital because I was his most high risk patient, and he wanted to make sure he was there at all times for me. He ended up coming in, checking me, and he was like, I think they said I was about 4 centimeters dilated. So I went from a 1 to a 4, and they had checked me a day prior, just one last time. They didn't want to keep doing it because of the risk of infection. and I was only at, like, I was barely entering a 2. And then it, like, my contractions stopped, so they didn't, because they didn't want to check anymore. We didn't know if I had been dilating that entire time. It is now believed I was. But I was at a 4 centimeters, almost a 5. So I was basically 5 centimeters. And I was dilating, from what they could tell, it was dilating fast. So, but baby girl was transverse breech, which means she was like this. Like, so this is me. Like this is like if I was laying like this, baby was like this way. She was on her side. Like laying at an angle, not like this, not head down, transverse. So I was not comfortable. I knew about ECVs, and while technically I could have done one, I personally just, as much as I can't really feel pain, I am not comfortable with those at all. They're just too risky. A lot of serious complications occur. Even most midwives won't actually do it because of how dangerous it can actually be. So we just went ahead and decided to do the emergency C-section. My mom was there, so she was told, when they came, and around 10 o'clock, I was getting unhooked, and they were, like, getting everything ready. I was puking. My contractions came back, like, full force. It was really, like, really strong. They were, like, pretty much, I wasn't getting breaks between them. My contractions weren't, to me, they don't, like, my labor contractions don't feel painful. I had back labor, and, like, so I was having, like, a lot of back aching, but it wasn't, like, severe. It was more annoying. And then the abdominal ones, it was just really tight pressure that it almost felt like it was hard to breathe. But that was it. It wasn't, I wouldn't really say that it was extremely painful, like it was painful really at all, to be honest. I wouldn't even say it hurt at all, aside from the annoying backache. But even that was minor. I've had worse periods. But yeah, they, like, wheeled me. I got a spinal. The nurse who, like, was in front of me was great. She let me hold her, I held on to her like this, and, like, she held on tight so I wouldn't, like, jerk or anything, and I would stay still, because I'm not terrified of needles. Mostly my body freezes up due to my fear that if I move, that something could go wrong. So my body, like, permanently freezes, but she was holding on to me just in case, because I asked her to. And then they did that. I felt it kick in. I couldn't really feel anything. It's just like, it's not like you completely lose feeling. It's more like you just go numb and you can't lift anything, like your limbs. Well, your lower limbs. It kind of felt like when they cut me open, I was literally like, I, like, looked at Josh and I was like, it kind of feels like an elephant sitting on my chest. And I was, like, asking the anesthesiologist, I'm like, is that normal? And they're like, yeah, that's pretty much, it's just the pressure is, like, so heavy that it kind of feels like that. And he was, like, keeping an eye on me, making sure I was okay. And they were doing, my OB was, like, making sure, like, they did everything carefully. Baby girl was born at 11:25 p.m. She weighed 3.5 pounds, and she was 15 inches long. They, like, took her, shook her like this. They're like, happy birthday, here she is. And then later down, I don't really remember much after that. I ended up waking up back in my room. And then apparently family, like, came and saw me, but I don't remember that. I was really blacked out, like, just emergency C-sections, the medication they gave me, they actually had tried to put me to sleep. Just because of, like, I think because it was an emergency, I think they were just trying to get me to, like, not stressed out and relax. since they were trying to, just to make sure everything was okay, that me and baby were okay, I signed like paperwork saying that that was fine. So I did know it wasn't like they were just doing that against my will. I knew they were trying to do that. I was like, I'm like, wow, I feel really sleepy. And they're like, yeah, just let it happen. My body somehow fought it. Like, that was the only time that's ever happened. Like, I've only been given anesthesia like that twice, and the first time it ever happened, my body just straight up rejected it. And I think it was just like because of like, I'm not even sure, like I couldn't really think much. I was kind of just out of it. But and it, like, most of that was blacked out. My C-sections feel like they go by so fast. Like 20 minutes is how long it feels like. But I remember waking up a few hours later, and I'm like, I'm so hungry, but because I just had a C-section, I couldn't eat, so all I could have was ice chips. They would come in, and oh my god, I know some women bitch and moan and say, I don't want to do this. I have a huge fear of hemorrhaging, and so when they said they were going to do the fundal massage, which I knew about, I was like, please. And I'm like, it's not the best sensation in the world. It does feel uncomfortable and it kind of does hurt. But to be honest, I actually felt like I actually kind of enjoyed when they did it. And it was just like, and then they kind of like changed me like a baby. And I would like start laughing because I'm like, I feel like a baby. And the nurses were great. But they were like making sure like I wasn't having any serious blood clotting. I was bleeding normal. The proper amount, not too much, not too little. My OB, before he had like finished the C-section, he 100% confirmed to completely avoid any future complications, which is why I love my male OBs and why I like prefer male doctors, is because I only have positive experiences with males. Is he completely made sure before he closed up. I remember that was like one of the last things I remember before I like completely zoned out after the C-section, was that before he closed me up, he made sure that there was nothing left inside. Like no placenta, that everything was cleared out, so there would be no risk of infection and nothing that could potentially cause like me to actually hemorrhage, that he could actually like control from that point, which I actually really think helped. He didn't find anything. They were able to get my placenta out like intact. They even checked it to make sure there was nothing like missing from it. Got everything out. I do need to mention, if you have a premature baby, what they do a lot of time is something called delayed cord clamping. It is something you can actually do with full-term babies, but specifically with preemies, they will actually just do it to avoid, because preemies are more likely to develop anemia, so they want to make sure the baby's connected to the blood flow to the mother as long as possible to prevent any other serious complications. I forgot to mention, I was given 2 steroid injections when I was 28 weeks, when I first went into the hospital that first time, to help baby's lungs develop faster, which is also why they actually believe that she didn't really have any health issues and why her lungs were doing so well compared to most 29-weekers. She was in the hospital for less than 6 weeks, which was great. As much as I hated her being in the NICU, she did amazing. We never had any scares, ever. She never had any brain issues, no brain bleeds, no heart complications. She had like the only thing was like a small heart murmur, but that was because she was so small. She was still in that period of where if I was pregnant, that stuff was still technically developing. So they weren't particularly worried about it, but obviously when you have a preemie, they have to get checked. So I got, when she left the NICU, 2 weeks later, we had to take her to a heart specialist who specializes with babies, preemie babies, and they found that it had like her heart had completely formed and that she was okay. And there was no more murmur or anything. She never had, I think she had one event that they determined was probably her just fucking with them, because she hadn't had any event like that before, where she never had any breathing issues. She was actually taken off oxygen fairly quickly because she showed, like, they test, see if baby can breathe on their own, and whenever they can determine that a baby is able to completely breathe on their own, they remove the oxygen source for them. So all she had was the feeding tube, because she was still too small to, like, properly, like eat from a bottle at that point. So she still had that for a bit. And it was mostly just weight gain, but that takes a while for any baby. But she got to a point where she was almost 5 pounds. And so we got all clear, so they removed the feeding tube. She was eating, gaining weight. And she was able to go home. And we never had any issues once she was home. She was great. Obviously, she's 8 years old now, about to be 8 years old, and she's not had any health issues. If you guys have ever had a preemie, you do realize you would know that they have to have PT, which is physical therapy, occupational therapy, and speech therapy, to make sure that they are developing like they are supposed to, and so they can catch anything if something goes wrong, or if something is going wrong, or they're delayed in any way. She was definitely more delayed not growth-wise, when she could do certain things, but that was expected, and it was pretty much the normal. But yeah, that was pretty much how everything went with my birth with my oldest. In the next video I do, it'll be the same day, so I'll look the same right here. Sorry if you've heard my dog. He's upstairs right now in his playpen. We have like this huge playpen. It's got puppy pads everywhere because he's a puppy, and he is still learning to enjoy it. He gets a little fussy sometimes. I did take him on a walk, like outside, before I put him in there, so he's just acting cranky right now. But yeah, that's it for this video. I will see you guys in the next one, which will be about my second daughter's birth.